Hello.
Ah, beautiful. Ah, look at those gorgeous faces.
Everybody coming in?
Hola.
Hola. Good. We have several people from Solomon.
Hola, hola.
Hola. Steph, it looks like you're taking a nice walk. That's
Yes.
beautiful. That's
Very
part of your self-care. That's gorgeous. Hi. And hello, Lihya. Lihya. Hello.
I think.
Yeah. John, we missed you in New York so very much.
Hello, Jillian. Hello, Jillian.
Hello, Lihya. And Annalie is here. So good, everyone.
Seeing all your faces, I'm clicking on multiple screens to see everyone. A lot of people that it's so nice to see from New York. It's so funny because we're having a presentation on, we're talking today about the nature of self-care and nutrition. And I can say that even though I felt very comfortable suggesting and sending Jennifer and Justin, and who went with you? Jennifer, one other person.
Christy.
And
Gaudin.
Christy
Yeah.
off to a restaurant in New York City called Cafeteria, which is one of my favorites specifically for fried chicken and waffles. So just brace yourself for what else could come out of my mouth on the subject of nutrition, knowing how much I love fried chicken and waffles done well.
You know, I think this is such a good segue. And to be fully transparent, there's nothing that Dr. Eric Pearl cannot eat.
Yes, there is.
What?
Fried liver and onions. It's disgusting.
But
It
that's
should be outlawed.
It's only because you don't like it.
That's right.
But this idea of nutrition and around self-care, we're going to look at it in a very linear way today. Nutrition, body, mind. But as Cece was just talking about, you know, spiritual nutrition is another matter. And so we want to look at how they all kind of merge, and then also how they can be very distinctly separate in our daily life experience. And some people thrive in that separation, and some people struggle deeply with that separation. So there's a lot of aspect. I know it's a hot topic, nutrition in general.
So let's not outline all the potentials before we go into it. Let's go into it and
see,
get the feel for it, or the shock of it, or the this, that, and the other, and then
yes,
you'll bring it back into the spiritual.
Well, I don't,
or maybe it is spiritual.
Not. I'm going to talk about fasting later, but I do want to say Kelly Woodruff really brought a beautiful perspective on the physicality of self-care and movement. And I really hope some of you, if you haven't already, avail yourself to a reconnective yoga experience at some point. It is, I always forget, since my hand surgery, I mean, I've really had to, I have had no ability to participate in something that for me, I love so much. So if you get a chance, make sure you do that as part of the month, the nature of self-care.
So let's start with this understanding. There are way more than 100 different diets that are recognizable even by name. Okay, I found one list on parade.com of 100 diets, starting with the famous low carb diets. There was Atkins and Whole30 and Dukin and Dubrow, and there's carb cycling and the wild diet, the Nourish and Glow, and then it'll go to Pritikin's. And of course, besides that, there's macrobiotics, and there's this, that, and the other, 100 different diets. And a lot of these names are famous, and most of them I've never heard of. Mayo Clinic diet, super carb diet. What's a super carb diet? I guess your carbohydrates all wear capes, masks, and change clothes in phone booths. The funny thing is that, well, let's just say this expression should sum it all up. To nutritionists, 3 opinions. Nutrition is its own field. generally speaking, unless it has something to do with a direct, distinct healthcare situation, your MD might not be the best person to go for nutrition, although he or she may think that they are. They take a limited course in nutrition, then they've done it, and they continue to tell you the same thing. But nutrition insights and breakthroughs and understandings happen all along the way. You actually, to be versed in nutrition, you need to make it a career of research. It's ongoing. We think that we know something, and most people who feel that they're well versed in nutrition, it's more of an emotional attachment to being right about it than actually being willing to do the research on it. It's a lot. I knew some brilliant people researching nutrition. Thank goodness for them, because I couldn't live on that and still have another career and have enough time to have any kind of an other career. So there are many understandings in this arena, and I'm going to touch on a few of the more common ones that we feel that we are familiar with, and we're going to see what happens with that. Okay. So nutrition. Let's move here. I have to
2 seconds. I'm
I have
just
to
want
get
to
my
make sure we
eyes
don't
around
have a
this.
lot of dinging.
Yeah, we'll hope. So, because we're a little dingy here. First of all, and the funny thing at this list of 100 different diets is they give you a link to find out what your dietitians, your registered dietitians might say about these things. I hate or don't hate to disappoint you in a certain area, but dietitians are not really the most well-versed people in this field either. And I know people might be taking offense at this, but they don't have the same approach. As some of you may know, I discussed a question and answer column where a letter was written in and said, my friend was in the hospital and the food tasted awful. He said he'd rather eat the cardboard. And I looked at it, and it was probably better nutrition in the cardboard that the food came in than the food themselves. I looked at the bottom of the list and saw that the diet in the hospital was designed by a dietitian. What's the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist? And the response was, a dietitian is concerned with what goes into your mouth, the nutritionist with what goes into your body's cell. In other words, the dietitian is the one who calculates how many pounds of glazed donuts it takes to feed 375 school children, and the nutritionist is the person who says, don't eat them. So already there's a different approach.
Let me just pause. So the nutritionist asks, what is the value of the food that goes into your cells?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Versus what goes into your mouth.
Or your body.
Well,
Okay.
right. What assimilates in the optimal way.
Okay.
So, look, I remember as a kid growing up with food groups. First, there were 3 food groups, then there were 4, then there were 5, then they separated this into that, and they removed food groups, and it was meat and vegetables and dairy and
What year was that?
something else we're not saying. And anyway, it changed. Change is always changing. So we want to be careful not to become too attached to what we think we know. My favorite food groups include vanilla ice cream and popcorn, but all depend, especially that great stuff in the Chicago airport, whatever that was called. Anyway, people get hung up with concepts such as cholesterol. And a lot of MDs and dietary approaches for a long time were don't eat too much cholesterol because the cholesterol builds in your body. What we've actually understood, really at least since the 70s, is that it's not the cholesterol that you eat that builds the cholesterol in your body. And that's horrifying to many people who've cut cholesterol out of their diets. The truth is, your body has a baroreceptor system. Baroreceptor means it calculates how much how much cholesterol that you're eating, and it produces more or less accordingly. That's just one way. But your cholesterol really builds up in your arteries, leading to heart disease or stroke or other things, not because of what you've eaten in the way of cholesterol, but actually because of the carbohydrates you eat. Carbohydrates have been praised, especially complex carbohydrates, for a long time because they haven't been really examined. everyone used to say, eat long chain carbohydrates, not short chain. For those of you who may have been following that concept, what they may have neglected to tell you was that the concept between long chain and short chain carbohydrates came from get this, research error. A research error. And here's what the error was. They fed people long chain carbohydrates, short chain. Long chain dissolved slower in the test tube solutions of stomach acid. Short chain dissolved very quickly in the test tube solutions of stomach acids. So they decided, and they realized that short chain carbohydrates turned to sugar right away and created sugar spikes. Long chain took longer. Now, all that sounds perfect, except for one thing. Carbohydrate digestion takes place initially in the mouth. There's amylase, which breaks down the long chain carbohydrates in the mouth into short chained, and everything that goes into your system becomes short chain. So the short chain carbohydrates create the same glycemic sugar spikes as the long ones. So the whole premise of that was off. Now, the problem with carbohydrates is that all carbohydrates you take in must be broken down to sugar in your body before your body can utilize it. And what happens is, as it flows through the arteries in your body, the vessels in your body, it creates a roughness in those arteries. Now, why is that important? Because all your blood cells need to flow through very smoothly, or they trip over those rough areas and they break, they split. And when that happens, they secrete a substance called gluten. It's not called gluten like the gluten you eat, but they produce something, a sticky substance. And this sticky substance causes them to stick together or agglutinate into clumps. And as they click into these clumps, they can't pass through the finer vessels, and they create blockages that lead to heart disease or stroke. So your body must smooth over all the damage caused by the carbohydrate inside the lumen or the opening of those vessels. And to do that, it secretes a substance. And the substance is cholesterol. So the more carbs we eat, the more cholesterol we have to produce to fix the damage of it, the more the vessels close up, and the greater the likelihood is for heart disease and stroke. So I'm just telling you some of these things so we can begin to see that we're not necessarily getting the easiest, cleanest system. Atkins versus Pritikin, low carb versus higher carb, high protein, medium protein, fats, they all kind of vary. And what happens is, whereas Atkins diets would give you a moderate to higher amount of protein, individualized fat, and low carbohydrate, and you'd lose weight off of that eating really as much as you wanted, Pritikin would go the other way, reduce your protein and go to high carbs, which caused a lot of diets. Caused a lot of problems, including it did reduce your cholesterol level. Once you reduced your cholesterol level below 180, you actually raise, you know some of this, yeah, you actually raise your susceptibility to cancers. Although Pritikin was able to bring his cholesterol way down, what a lot of people don't know, and they don't advertise much, obviously, is that he died of not one, but two full-blown cancers going on in his system. I don't think that you want to pick on any one diet and select it for your whole life. I think we need a little variation. And I think part of that variation comes from being better informed. For example, for a long time, your MDs were telling you to eat lots of polyunsaturates. What we began to recognize also from way back, we knew this. You know, they introduced polyunsaturates such as margarines into the diet starting in the 1920s. And at the same time, heart disease and stroke and cancer levels began to increase. Why? Because a polyunsaturate has a bunch of openings. Those are the unsaturated parts. So off of all those little openings in the chain, it starts to bond with other items which are precursors of cancer. The more polyunsaturates, the higher the likelihood of developing cancers. So all the carbon molecules, if they're fully saturated, nothing can bond with them. If they're monounsaturated, like olive oil, for example, they'll get just a couple things that bond with them. But if they're polyunsaturated, you get a lot of things, and that causes the problem. Actually, if you've heard the expression butter is better, it's not just because of the flavor. It is. It's a natural occurring substance. That's why people like olive oil or grapeseed oil or otherwise butter with the situation. Fats are not inherently unhealthy. As a matter of fact, if you're going to have sugar, guess what's one of the best forms for it? Tell me.
I don't know.
Ice cream. You know
Oh.
why? Because the fat in ice cream slows down the absorption of the carbohydrates, so you spike less. Now, again, you probably don't want to go to your dietitian and say, well, if I need some sugar in my diet, can I take it in an ice cream? Because depending on how well versed they are, they may or not tell you these things.
Do I get to share Dr. Eric's
Briefly.
ice cream bowl every night
What?
at 11? Cecilia, you could feel free if you can find that particular picture.
No, you can't. Anyway, yes, you can. I don't care. It's fine.
You
So
go.
anyway, you know, there are vegetarians, there are carnivores, there are omnivores. Is the problem the meat, the fish, or the chicken? Or is it what the animal has been fed, or how they've been raised, or how they've been slaughtered? They talk about, you know, not being killed humanely, whatever that actually means, as increasing hormones that go through the system that upset our system. What is it eating? But is it the eggs, the meat, the fish, the chicken themselves? Probably not. And let me give you just a little understanding of this, and then you can decide on your own conclusions, how you want to reach them. But we as human beings today stem from Australopithecus africanus. Those were the old caveman pictures that you might see, actually a little pre that. There were two Australopithecus, one was vegetarian and one was the africanus. The vegetarians spent most of the time foraging for food, and they died off. The africanus is who we're descended from. Now, it's interesting. If you look at virtually every animal walking this planet, you can tell their diet from their teeth or their intestinal tract compared with their spinal column or spinal cord. One is called comparative anatomy, and one is called comparative dentistry. So they'll look at the number of wisdom teeth, incisors, molars, etc., and they can determine what percentage of that diet would be meat, you know, flesh, would be omnivorous or carnivorous, I should say, or would be vegetarian. You can also do the comparison between the spinal column or cord and your intestinal tract for every animal. You can accurately predict the percentage of their diet, which is vegetable or meat, fish, chicken, protein. According to both, the human being is designed to be on a 2/3 carnivorous diet. Now, I know there are some vegetarian studies that try to say differently, but you have to look, I believe, at who sponsors and supports and funds the study before you actually jump at the data they come to. And a lot of us will read the study, and if we like the study, we agree with it. If we don't, we don't. But I'm going to ask you to take a few more minutes and say who funded that study, and then maybe you want to pick the accuracy, wait a minute, of the studies themselves. I think it's very important.
Right, and I'm just going to throw in the news flash right here that the detailed part of this nutritional conversation, I would say always as your first default, your instinct, your body's instinct is your first reference. So while there may be, that particular study, which is
You're right.
valuable
You're right. I
information.
agree that it should be your
Yes.
first reference, but if you are
Always.
going to look at research, if you can look at research, then look at who funded the research,
Mhm.
and then you might rethink the research that you're quoting.
Absolutely.
Now, problems with vegan diets in specific and some vegetarian diets is that it leaves certain weaknesses that need to be compensated for. You've all heard
Like
this:
what?
supplementation, B12, folic acid, calcium, iron, zinc, long chain omega-3 acids are needed to
All
help.
vegetarians?
The vegan diet, basically, and some vegetarian
I'm
diets.
a vegetarian since birth.
Right.
I'm trying to, I'm doing a fact check on Dr.
You,
Eric
you
here
can
right
do
now.
all that. I've got it printed.
I'm fact checking in the background.
Okay, you can fact check. Now, the problem also then, or not the problem, but the challenge is that you can't really take one supplement without needing others to assimilate it. So for example, some people say, well, I'll take a B12. Great. But you know what? You need to assimilate B12. You need the rest of the B complex. If you don't take a B complex with it, that B12 molecule sucks all the rest of the B vitamins out of the rest of your system to create something whole, to assimilate. So if you're going to take B12, you want a B complex. You want folic acid with it. You want calcium with it. You want certain things. If you need zinc, then you need to know that you need B6 with the zinc, and you need selenium with the zinc. So let's not go into all of that. I'm just saying it's not necessarily, I think I'll buy this nifty bottle in the health food store without looking a little bit more into it. Macrobiotics is a diet. Food combining is a diet. Diets have their strengths. Blood type diets have their weaknesses. How can you do a complete comprehensive blood type diet when we're finding out about new blood types all the time? Just a thought. Food combining is the kind of diet where they say you don't drink with your food, as if, because it'll wash it away, as if the food is sitting there waiting to be washed away by an overly zealous chocolate soda. It isn't. It attaches to the inside of your digestive tract or your stomach, and your body secretes the appropriate digestive enzymes into it to handle it. So our bodies are a little more intelligent than some of these things. And a lot of us have tried many different diets. A lot of us have given up meat much more than once. A lot of us have shifted to only this, only that. We find our balance in this. When I met Jillian, I spent a long time drinking only vegetable juices. I have to tell you, I did. I had my refrigerator filled
You're
with
just
them.
curious.
I didn't have food for weeks. No, in my own house, still back then.
Oh,
I did that because you were doing that. And you know what? I have to tell you, I felt really good. Every time I got hungry, I drank a juice, the hunger went away, and I felt really good. And yet, and I can go a week having, greens and this, that, and the other, if I choose to. Take me out to a restaurant, all it takes is just one person ordering a steak, and forget it. My salad's going back. I'm having the steak. That's my nature. That's my instinct. So as we move through this, it comes back to using your instinct. So diet and spirituality and the ability to facilitate healings. Some people would be horrified that I'd stand on stage at that time doing my shtick with Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper, and Mountain Dew.
he did.
And I did. I told them you can have a Coca-Cola and still facilitate a healing, and I'd give a demo, and it's the real thing. And then some of them got offended at that. So I said, well, then I'll switch to Dr. Pepper. It's got to be good for you because it says doctor right there in the label. Some people were still offended. So I went to something natural that formed on the earth early in the mornings and the sides of the mountains and the blades of grass. And I found Mountain Dew. Guess what? The healings work whether you have pepperoni on your pizza or not, whether you're a vegetarian or not, whether you're macrobiotic or not. There is no one best diet to facilitate healings with. Nothing makes us better than the other. It just makes us feel as if we're superior in our understanding of things.
That's a pause.
Okay.
the statement, nothing makes us better or worse in facilitating
in the way of a diet.
In facilitating a reconnective healing experience.
Any healing.
The reason I'm going to speak specifically to the reconnective healing experience is because
Would you speak to our YouTubers?
Oh, hey, YouTubers.
Oh,
Glad you joined us for this rather contentious today, usually different than any other time. But if you want to be more with us, join the Reconnective Life Community. Scroll down. I think there's a link.
Click the link. Bye. So this, I'm going to say just the intersection of the reconnective healing experience. And since you're kind of here because that's curious to you, again, remember that all that you are receiving in all aspects of what you are coming into a greater awareness around.
Hey there, family. Dr. Eric and Jillian here.
Welcome, everyone.
And we're very excited about Reconnective Life, our first online global community. This is the most exciting way we've been able to get together since I founded the Reconnection. It'll be a place where we can do things together. We'll move into breakout rooms at times when that's appropriate. We'll have energy interactions and meditations and exercises. In other words, expect things you haven't seen before.
You are so charged.
Thanks.
He is so lit about every new way we get to be together every day. Just be together. Let us just speak a little bit about what is going to be the shape of this community.
In this community, we can share and discover more. Here we can talk to each other, we can chat, we can learn from and about one another. Jillian, me, our life leaders, and you will be in daily conversation with you. Weekly, we will have Facebook Lives.
We will be with you every Wednesday. Sometimes it'll be just Eric. On occasion, it might just be me. Sometimes it'll be the two of us. It's all about giving you a way to look at the week living in the frequencies.
And in every fourth week, we will include a live Q&A so we can talk about things that have been coming up for us, discuss back and forth, share, grow, expand together.
And the ever-growing library of content that has been created over 20 years that will be on demand for you. It will be on-demand content for you to view, enjoy, share again with your inner circle.
And monthly, we are going to have live Zoom retreats. We're going to bring in some exercises and experiences and things that previously we've reserved for our physical retreats, you know, when we were in the different location resorts and things, and we're modifying them so that we can work with these with you in your home, in your living room, in your den. Put into the chat line, what is facility? We're having these weekly Zoom in-depth Q&As.
Finally, we have a place and space to just define what does that really mean living in the frequencies.
This is something that is in all of us.
Everyone can do this.
It doesn't matter how many levels you've gone through or how well you know the programs. It's a community that allows us to recognize how interrelated we all are as receivers of energy, light, and information.
See you there.
Reconnective Life, living in the frequencies every day. Hi, I'm Eric Pearl, and we have launched an online course called The Portal. It's an expansion of our online essentials, our level 1, an 8+ hour e-learning course.
And we decided to add content because our students were asking for more. What is a portal? It's a doorway to transformation.
It includes the 8 hours of the online essentials course,
2 key chapters, one on love and one on healing, and workbooks from our worthiness episode from the series The Inner Compass.
more than 10 hours of content.
The portal helps us discover our roadblocks that may be stopping us from living our fullest potential.
how does the portal help bring about these benefits? Easy to follow short segments with interactive exercises, information acquired not only through the mind, but through interaction with the frequencies themselves. Effortless learning and personal evolution.
It brings the possibility for instant transformation, healing, and the evolution of each and every one of us in our everyday lives.